Welcome to this tutorial on the collaborative development workflow using the Dashjoin low-code platform. Consider the following scenario. You have an application running on the right side in the production. You have developers on the left side who would maybe like to fix a bug or add a new feature. The question is, how can the two developers work collaboratively in a sandbox environment? How can we sync versions, have version control, document our changes, unit test the application, and finally release it in a compliant, governed way onto the production. This is what this video is about. In the Dashjoin platform, we leverage off-the-shelf tools. For instance, in this video, we will use GitHub to do this. And we will show a workflow where the developer on the left side uses a Windows machine and a local environment, and the production runs on a Docker container. So let's get started and set up the development environment. On the Dashjoin homepage, you can hit the download button, go to the latest release. In this case, we select Windows and we download the zipped executable, which we unzip and simply start. The application that we will be working with is the Dashjoin demo application, which is available in this GitHub repository. So let's simply copy the URL and use VS Code to check out this application into the correct location. When we open the local application and log in, we can see a vanilla system with no databases and no pages being added. By default, the application is located in the home directory in the .dashjoin folder. So let's have a look. We're switching to the command line. We cd into the Dashjoin directory and list the files in there. We have two files in here which contain the default admin user that is created during the setup, which is described in the other video. We will delete those two files for now because the .dashjoin directory must be empty for the git clone to be successful. We go up one directory and then we say git clone, provide the URL of the app that we want to work with, and then specify the .dashjoin directory. The application is being cloned into this default Dashjoin directory, and now we're ready to go. So let's open up the browser, do the setup again, and then see what we have. So we can open the browser on localhost port 8080, provide the admin user and the default password, which is DJ in our case, and create the setup user, and now go ahead and log in using that. You can see that the demo application is active and we can have a look around. So for instance, we have the database here. Note that these connection URLs can be customized to point to a sandbox setup. I will put the documentation on how to do that in the show notes. The same is true for instance, this URL of this REST service. If you'd like to use a different REST service in your sandbox, you can also do that using external environment variables. We can now go ahead and make a small change. So for instance, if we have this application or this page in the demo application, and let's say we want to fix a small typo, go in and say, so we can just use the normal query editor, the layout editor, or the JSONata editor. And in this case, maybe we would like to do a change this hard-coded to hard-minus-coded. So let's make this change here. So we have this hard -coded and save the layout. Okay, so what happened now is that the file button.json was changed on the file system, and now we can use VS Code to review the change. So let's go in and cd back into the directory and just open VS Code. You can use really any kind of other editor that is able to, that also includes a Git client. We recommend VS Code because it's really nice and quite usable. So You can see that the project is active. If you have the Git extension active, you can immediately go into the source control view. So you can see that there's 3 changes. So one is the DJ properties and the DJ user. With the in here we can see the change that we made. So you can see on the left side you can see the central version without the hyphen, and on the right side we can see the change that we made through the layout editor with the hyphen in here. Note that you can also make changes in VS Code directly. You just need to reload the page for the changes to become active. So now we can go ahead and add this into the as a staged commit. We can say we fixed typo and commit this into the local repository. And now if we want to push this to the central repository, we can go ahead and do this here. Okay, now that we made the change, let's deploy it to production. So production is, we use Docker for this, and we'll do it in the same machine here. So let's just stop the development server in the console using Control-C. And then we use this command to fire up the Docker container. So now let's have a look at the parameters. So we say Docker run. We tell the Docker to use port 8080 and expose it on the local machine's port 8080 as well. We have 2 environment variables. So we have the DJ admin password, which is set to our default development password. We have the Dashjoin home, which we set to Dashjoin-demo. And then we have the Dashjoin application URL, which is the same, the URL of the GitHub repository. And then we use the Dashjoin/platform Docker container. So now let's fire up this container. And it's running here interactively on the console. So we switch to back to the browser window, and we can log in using the credentials we provided on the Docker console. And we can log in, and you can see that the demo application is provisioned again. It looks just the same. And of course, if we go to our little change, it is active in here. The last topic to cover are unit tests. These are essential to ensure high quality, making sure that no change breaks any functionality. In the Dashjoin platform, most of the business logic is encapsulated in JSON-ATA expressions. Here we have a very simple example, which is an invoke function that simply adds 2 values. We can write a unit test that specifies the location of this JSON-ATA expression that we would like to check, and we can provide base data and different test cases that override the base data and expect a certain result. So for instance, here we have the data x is 3, it takes the base data y is 2, and the expected result is 5. Okay. In order to test this, we simply use this command. We say maven test. That invokes the JUnit framework. And in this case, the tests run fine and we don't have any kind of issue. If we go and introduce a breaking change, for instance, so if we change the function to x minus y and rerun the tests, we'll get an error message because the expected output doesn't match. So in here we see the results, and we get the error message that the result expected was 3, but the result actually was -1. So this is sort of a logical error, but we can also, let's say, if we have a syntax error on the JSON-ATA level, so the ++ operator, for instance, isn't defined, this is also checked because the expression doesn't compile correctly. So this is also checked by the system, and this will also fail because we have a syntax error in our program code, so to speak. This concludes the tutorial on the development workflow. If you visit our GitHub platform page, you find a link to the training course that contains the workflow again in more detail. There's also the documentation available here. Specifically under the section Development Production, you can find information also on how to specify development resources that point to different database and REST endpoints in the sandbox or development mode. The training course slides available here. On slide 32 you find the picture that we just went through. So again, just to recap, we had a developer working on a local installation Windows machine, making a change in the sandbox, committing that change to a GitHub repository, and then we showed how we can configure the Docker container, the production Docker container, to pull any change from the central GitHub repository in order to transport these changes into the production. Note that you have the full feature set of GitHub available. So you have issue management, documentation, you have tagging, branching, so you can configure the production to pull from a certain stable tag. So you really have the full feature set available here. So thanks for your interest, and check out the other videos as well.